Well, hi folks, and welcome to the Old Classic Car channel. Today I am down at Brightwells. It is Tuesday the 21st of October, I believe. The auction itself begins online on Saturday. That's when registration opens and it runs through to the following Wednesday. There are viewing days coming up, so if there's anything here that really floats your boat, I suggest getting over here and having a look for yourself. There is a really eclectic mix of classic and indeed, as you can see just over my shoulder here, a wonderful array of vintage cars, many of which I have never ever clapped eyes on before. Some real rarities, including that black car just over the way there. So I think that is probably where we will start with the slightly older cars. There's a huge gathering of Land Rovers over that away, so we'll be checking those out as well. And behind me, lots more regular classics and indeed some more pre-war cars just over the way. So let's start over in this corner of the building and see what we can spot here today at the next Brightwells auction. As I always say with these auction preview videos, this is just a general overview of what is going up for auction in the coming days. If there's anything that really is of interest, please contact the Brightwells team directly here down in leafy Leominster. Have a look at the website as well, because there are some pretty extensive descriptions on there as well, and that is where you'll find all the details about commission, registration, paperwork situation on each of the cars and all that kind of thing. Remember, any inclusion of a car in this video is not necessarily a recommendation to bid, it is purely an overview, an introduction into what you could possibly bid on if you so wish. We begin with, in this corner, a lovely Jensen Interceptor 3, so huge big Chrysler engine under that long swoopy bonnet. This one's got a January 76 tax disc in the window and registration car. Wow. What a great looking car. Of course, by this point in time, Jensen had switched from fiberglass coachwork to steel, and as a result, these can be quite the project. If you bought a ropey one of these, you would be in for a lot of expenditure. So it's the kind of car that you really want to just buy a nice one in the very beginning. I love the huge wraparound rear screen on these as well. jensenservice.co.uk. That is one glamorous looking motor car. As always, let me know in the comments which car or cars most appeal to you in this particular selection. Oh, I like the fact this has got an 8-track. Let's just have a look, see. Hopefully it won't set any alarms off, that would be quite disappointing. But let's have a quick peer inside. Very swish indeed. You can just imagine being a 70s exec sweeping up and down the M1 in this. Look at that 8-track player, Frank Sinatra's 20 golden greats. Wow, beautiful inside. Yeah, proper exec express from the 1970s. Door shuts very nicely. That's always a good test of a car. Right, let's carry on. There are a huge assortment of cars here today, so I'm going to try and get around as quickly as I can. Next to the Jensen is this lovely AC Cobra replica. This is a Dax Cobra, Dax being one of the better known purveyors of AC Cobra kits. This based around the old 427 Cobra. They're big, I think it's about 7 litre originally, weren't they? I'm not quite sure which engine this one's got, but all the details will be on the website. But it does look like a bit of a giggle. Don't think it's done much mileage, this one, since it was built either, so that could be a lot of fun. And, well, talking of performance vehicles, we have this beauty. Look at this Plymouth Barracuda from 1967. Lovely metallic blue. That really does set it off. That really is quite the car. If we go around here, I think it's the only muscle car that's entered into the next auction. This one, the estimate's about 27 to 30, I believe. And it is in beautiful condition. Interesting alternative perhaps to your Ford Mustangs. There's plenty of Mustangs around, but you don't see too many of these beauties. I like the fact it's got the old tin wheel trims on it as well. Yeah, I like that. Left-hand drive, as most of these cars are. I'm not sure these were ever sold here in the UK. I'm assuming this one is an import, but yeah, 2-door coupe. Very similar, sort of in spirit to your Dodge Chargers, that kind of thing. But this one, yeah, pretty tasty looking bit of kit. Yeah, that is lovely, and somewhat dwarfing the first of the pre-war cars to feature in this video. One of many pre-war cars here today, and I'm really delighted to see so many lovely early cars here. This is a 1933 Morris Minor two-seater. They were never actually sold as Tourers, even though they are two-seat Tourers, but in all the period advertising they were referred to as the two-seat Tourer. I think these were about £100 when they were new. This is a 33 model with a side valve engine. I used to have a 1932 one of these for many years. Bonny little car, interesting alternative to the Austin 7, and in more recent times these have been accepted by the VSCC for many years. The Vintage Sports Car Club would only allow people with the earlier Cami Morris Minors to take part in their events, but then they saw the light and they added the side valve powered cars like you see here to their so-called post-vintage thoroughbred list, i.e. cars that they let come and play in their events which are post-1930 in manufacture. This little Morris Minor looks to be in really nice nick. The grille changed every year or two. 32 was different. I think 34 may have been similar to this. It's a very bonny car. Original registration as well, JF4546. It's quite a nice little following for these early minors now. Most people think of pre-war Morris Minor and think, well, what's that? You know, most people have only heard of the post-war Isigonis Morris Minors, but no, pre-war minors were very much a thing, as this car demonstrates here. Yeah, that's a lovely little car that is. So it's a 33, and I think the estimate's about 7 to 9. But that is a bonny little car. Put the roof down, and it's just a lovely shape. I love the way the back end drops away, and you got the spare hung off the back there. No, I really like that. That's a very bonny engine. These were the predecessor to the Morris 8 Series 1. Now, alongside it, another pre-war gem. This is the Donnet. Now, this is a French car, which we did actually see last time we were here for the Brightwells auction. This is 1925, the date of this one, the Donnet Zedel G2. Now, I think the estimate on this little saloon is about £4,000 to £6,000. You know, and in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't sound like a huge amount of money for what, on the face of it, appears to be a beautiful little car. Yeah, little side lights there on the top of the wings. Société Française des Automobiles. There we go, on the radiator there. So again, an interesting alternative, and a little bit bigger than an Austin 7. V5C, French registration documents are with it, an old MOT, some VSCC papers. Again, this would be eligible for Vintage Sports Car Club events. Yeah, fully restored about 35 years ago and carefully used since, and recent engine rebuild. I mean, that probably cost £5,000. Fabric covered coachwork on this, little two-door saloon. It's just a lovely little thing. The interior, nice and simple, but very stylish. What there is really lovely. Look at that. Some people say, oh, no one wants pre-war cars, but I'll have to beg to differ on that one. For many years, when I first started out being interested in old cars, it was all sort of 60s cars that I was interested in, until I got to know a chap many years ago who was into his old Singers, his early Singers, and a couple of passenger rides in his 1935 Singer 9 Le Mans converted me to the ways of pre-war cars. And ever since, I've been a big fan of them. They're just such character to them, and every journey, every trip out is an occasion. This is lovely. What a rare little car that is, right? And we'll carry on along this wonderful row of early cars, and here we have an Alvis. Now, I think I'm right in saying that this is from 1923. So proper vintage era runs up to the end of 1930. That's how it's been defined here in the UK by the VSCC, and that's kind of stuck really. This particular car was for many years in the Bewley Museum, the National Motor Museum at Bewley. So this is a 1240, I believe, so 12 will be 12 horsepower, the old RAC rating. And, well, it looks to be, it's probably had an older paint job at some point in time. It's sort of nicely mellowed in. Same with the radiator, not polished up too shiny, because sometimes these things can look just a bit too shiny, but I like them looking a little bit more their age. Big hefty starting handle in the front there. Let's have a look. So it's a two-seater. Yeah, folding roof. There's the hooter and the extra little side lamps on the scuttle. Great looking thing. Nice old RAC badge over the way. Wow, this is really lovely. Note, no door on the driver's side. You got the spare wheel on the running board, which makes a door somewhat unlikely because it get in the way. But what's the? I think the estimate on this is about £10,000, something like that. And for that, you get a very, very characterful car. And yeah, what a treat, isn't it? Just lovely. Looks like there's a dicky seat, or the mother-in-law seat, built into the back here. So this panel here will fold forward, and there will be an extra, very small row of seating for another, well, one or maybe two small people in the back there. You can see there's a step there. That's the giveaway, that there is a dicky seat hiding away in the back, or rumble seat as they're sometimes called as well. Lovely car. Looks like the original hood on it as well. Yeah, what a beauty. I'm not sure if I've ever seen one of these before. The 12, it's come across 1250s. They're a very, very popular choice in vintage car events. I'm not sure I've seen too many of these 1240s, I must admit. So yep, so we've got a door on this side, so this is the side that you clamber in and out of. It's quite cosy in there, but enough room for two people. And wow, what a beautiful thing. Of course, if you buy something like this, it opens up a whole world of events, road runs, all that kind of thing that you can take part in. Low speed events, competitive events, driving runs, road tours, all that sort of thing. Specifically designed with the pre-war car owner in mind, so low speed, fairly relaxed, and yeah, all a lot of fun. So yeah, the estimate on that is about 10 to 12, somewhere in that ballpark. And staying with the vintage world, we've got this, which is a 1922 Vauxhall Tourer. Now this is, yeah, I mean 1922 is pretty early for a Vauxhall. This one a 23/60, lovely looking car. Estimate on this one is up around about 30ish, 30 to 40. But that's, well, what a handsome looking car. The very distinctive shape of the radiator on these early Vauxhalls. Lovely enamel badge there, nickel plated. And you've got the flutes along the side of the top of the bonnet, starting here on the top of the radiator surround itself. Lovely car. Like I say, all the details, the backstory, the history of each of these cars is pretty well described over on the Brightwells website. So I'd urge anyone interested in any of the cars here, that should be your next port of call after watching all this video, of course. Because the more people who watch the video all the way through, the better it is for the channel. Yeah, so this is a four-seater, plenty of legroom in the back, and a well-stocked dash as well. I mean, Vauxhalls were quality cars back at this point in time. Quite a sporting choice in many ways, but yeah, very well-equipped dashboard. All your advance and retard in the middle of the steering wheel there, for manual adjustments of the engine timing. There's a little dealer supplier plaque I can see up there for H.J. Goodman of Tavistock. That's a nice little detail. The handbrake over the way there alongside the gear lever. Yeah, lovely, lovely car. Pretty hefty fuel tank on the back. All plumbed in. Fuel gauge built in to the top of the tank, so if you want to check your fuel level, you would just pull over, hop out and have a quick peer at that. Yeah, lovely car. Like I say, quite rare, early 1920s, so proper vintage. Pretty hefty leaf springs as well. The diver's helmet type of rear lamp, the CAV lamp. Yes, I could definitely see myself in something like that. Yeah. You've got CAV illumination at the front as well. Honeycomb radiator. Yeah, in bare aluminium, so would you paint it? Would you leave it looking like that? Well, that is entirely the decision of the next owner. hopefully it'll find an appreciative home. Next to it, well, slightly later, only just though, this is from 1925. This is a Sunbeam 1440 Tourer, about 2.1 litres, I think 4-cylinder engine under that bonnet there. The estimate on this one is about half that of the Vauxhall. This is around about 14 to 18 is the estimate on this one. And yeah, actually that's got a lovely look to it. I really do like the coachwork on that one. Very similar size wheels. Note no brakes on the front of the Vauxhall, whereas this one has some pretty hefty brakes on it, this old Sunbeam. But again, beautiful lamps, just wonderful quality. It's all very tactile as well, beautifully made. And this is what sort of separates proper old cars like this from younger classics, say from the 60s and the 1970s. Good as they are, they just usually they can't match the quality of the fittings on cars of this age. And maybe it's just an age thing, but as I get older I appreciate properly built things more and more, especially as modern cars are so disposable nowadays. So look at these beautifully made things, plated, you know, it's just, you know, proper stuff, properly made to last, built to a quality, not down to a cost. And, yeah, I love the shape of the body, the way the doors and the side just rolls over quite nicely. Let's have a quick look in here. Should we try that? No, it's locked, so we won't try that. But yeah, beautiful interior as well. Very, very nice place to sit this would be. Soft top frame all still in place over there. So this looks like an older repaint, and it's just, to be honest, it's mellowed in beautifully. Again, not too shiny. You know, you could polish these up a little bit if you wanted to. The old nickel plated mirror there, Desmo of Birmingham. There's the wiper motor on the top of the screen, but what a lovely thing this really is. I mean, I like the look of it when I saw the photos online and I was checking out the auction entries just yesterday. But seeing this one, in particular, seeing this one in the metal, it really is winning me over, this one, I must say. And I'm not just saying that, you know, I'm not on commission, I'm not paid to create these videos looking at the auction entries, so I just say what I think. PY3936 looks like the original registration number as well. Look at that castellated fuel filler cap. Wowzers. I just say it as I see it. And this, I really like the look of this, I must admit. Not too shiny, just nicely mellowed in. The maroon wheels, and indeed chassis complementing the interior colour. How comfy is that? I could fall asleep in there. Better not try it out because I probably would do. But yeah, there we go. Oh, we've got a bit of info. Oh, we've got some starting instructions here. Yeah, so turning on the fuel, retarding the ignition presumably, flood the carburettor if engine is cold. So yeah, definitely a start-up procedure. And this is the kind of thing that just makes owning cars of this age just that little bit more special, that bit more interesting, in my view. Of course, other views may vary, but yeah, what a beauty. I do like that a lot. I have to say, that really is a bit of a special one, that, I think. So as you can see, a real varied assortment of pre-war cars, and we're not done yet. Now, this is one of the cars that I was talking about, well, one of two cars here that I have never clapped eyes on before. This one dates to 1922. It's a French car. It's a, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Sidea Jouffret 4C5, and this one dates to 1922, and whew, again, beautiful pre-war fittings. So, you know, sometimes you see these early cars and they've got modern lamps bolted to them and unnecessary accessories maybe from the 1970s, and they just never look quite right. This really is a very, very unusual car. Look at that. Sidea Jouffret. I'm going to guess at my pronunciation, but apologies if I've mangled that. Having never seen one of these before. Well, yellow bulbs, of course, for France. That was a feature of French cars at this point in time. Yeah. Nice Looks like the paint is sort of a bit of patina to the paint. Would you just oily rag that as a nod to its history, or would you strip it and repaint it? I think I'd probably just clean it up. Just clean up the little bits here and there, some of the fittings, but a weekend with the auto sole, chrome polish, and just bring it up a little bit, and that would really be a treat. And look, I love the way the front wing is profiled to take the spare wheel and tyre both sides on this, but I've never seen this treatment to a front wing before in order to accommodate it. But the beauty of that is it means you get doors at the front, which is not always the case with these cars, and this is right-hand drive. Wow, now that is a bit special. Where's this one been all its life, I wonder? Yeah, I mean, all this would just clean up a treat. You could just got a little bit of surface corrosion, and that would, you know, a few minutes with your auto sole, and that would come up looking really, really well. Again, very attractive dashboard in here. What a lovely car. Again, original interior. I mean, would you retrim that? It kind of seems a shame to retrim it. I wonder if you could, I bet someone who knows their upholstery could do something with this just to improve it and stop it getting any worse, because it would be a shame to rip it out. Let's just have a quick look. We just open this door. Look at these original trims. Presumably this is for putting your map in or any other documents that you might have on your person. Look at that. Yeah, isn't that just lovely? Yeah, I do like that. Just carefully shut the door. That closed nicely. Again, folding roof is in place, complete with what looks to be the original sort of bag over the folded roof, which is a nice detail. BF9302, so that shows that it's got a registration on it here in the UK, so that's always nice to see. Saves you having to go through the dating certificate route with DVLA. I mean, it's got an extra little lamp there just for safety's sake, but that is the original tail lamp, I think. Painted number plates as well. That's good, I like that kind of thing. Yeah, look at that original lamp, what a thing. Oh, there's a little tail light as well, but that certainly looks as old as the rest of the car. Yeah, what a rare thing. Where are these things coming out of the woodwork? It never ceases to amaze me just what's out there. Yeah, Cédé Joufferet, Paris. Wow, lovely, lovely thing. Yeah, and again, the spare wheel just set in to the front wing, which makes it a pretty special looking car. I think the engine in this is about 1.7 litres there or thereabouts. It's an overhead cam, I believe, if my memory serves. Overhead cam engine. The estimate on this is about 8 to 10. So again, for the price of a fairly average classic car, you could get yourself behind the wheel of something really, really quite special. And you're not going to see another one of those at any shows anytime soon. But I hadn't noticed this, the way the spare wheel fits in there. And that, I think, is a really, really cool detail. But what a great lineup on the end of this row. Now this, at first glance, I assumed, oh, it's a Ford Model T. And you can see that there's a lot of similarities in the styling of this car. But I mean, contemporary Buicks look pretty much the same as well. But this is a Grant Model TT from, well, there we go, 1915. Handy to see this Veteran Car Club plaque on the front here. And this would get you into VCC events, the Veteran Car Club. We were actually having a look at a Veteran Car Club meeting just a week or two back, and I have to say it did look an awful lot of fun, and this car would get you in on it. DS9729 is the registration, and I'm pretty certain that this would be the only one of these in the country. There can't be many of these. I think there's around 334 of these were built in all. This one I think is about number 170 of that particular pile of cars, built in Ohio, left-hand drive. I'm sure they were all left-hand driver. I can't imagine these were shipped abroad when they were new. But it's certainly a very, very special car. So it's a bit like a Model T to look at, but not. No braking on the front axle, but they usually have pretty hefty brakes on the back to compensate. I mean, our 24 Dodge that we had, the Dodge Brothers Tourer, that didn't have any brakes on the front, and that was never an issue. To be honest, you get so much engine braking. That's the Speedo drive there. You get so much engine braking with cars of this type that half the time you very rarely touch the brake pedal anyway. Yeah, what a treat. It's worth coming down here just to see this row of pre-war cars, because like I say, many of these I've just never clapped eyes on before. Left-hand drive, I actually quite like left-hand drive. I find them quite nice to drive, mainly because being right-handed, I get to use my right hand for gear changes. So it's not like you're going to be overtaking anything in something like this, so it kind of doesn't really matter. So the hood is up at the moment, and when you fold it down, it would sit inside this bracket. So this swings out, and then you would open that, you ping the top off there. This is very similar to our Dodge Brothers. Ping that off, open that out, the soft top folds down, the frame sits inside here, and then you clip this back and it's all neatly stowed on the back. So that's how that works. Wooden spoke wheels as well, yeah, I'm familiar with them, but there's an interesting alternative to a Model T or maybe a veteran era Buick. This has got a lot going for it. Like I say, built in Ohio, the estimate on this is about 11 to 14, somewhere in that ballpark. So we're talking Model T money, but arguably something a whole lot more unusual and just a bit different. How comfy does that look? Beautiful buttoned upholstery. Yeah, I could definitely see myself in here. I'm assuming this is the fuel filler. Quite often cars of this era had the fuel tank hidden behind the scuttle, a bit like a Ford Model A in fact. Lovely array of switchgear there and the controls. Yeah, can you imagine sitting behind the wheel of that? That's the view down the bonnet. What a treat. Every journey a real occasion if you took this one out down the road. That's just lovely. Really, really like that. It's got the Boyce Moto meter, your temperature gauge there, set in to the top of the radiator itself. I guess the only downside with this is you'll be forever telling people it isn't a Ford Model T. This is the Grant Model TT. Yeah, what a phenomenal bit of kit. And right, let's just amble over in this general direction because you won't have missed this little open top cream coloured Tourer here. Now this is a Riley, and Riley very, very popular in vintage car events. This one dates to 1931, so just about post-vintage. But again, this one qualifies for the VSCC's PVT list, post-vintage thoroughbred list, so this would be eligible for VSCC events. This is a Riley 9 Gamecock. I think the estimate on this is around 10-ish, something in that kind of ballpark. And for that you get a very smart looking Tourer. Lovely, lovely looking car. Everywhere you look you see the diamond of the Riley badge just included. You can even see, if you look at the shape, the way the bonnet sort of peaks up, that's a nod to the diamond shape. The louvers in the side of the bonnet, again, that's a nod to the Riley badge. A lovely wooden dash as well. As we've been talking about, really nicely equipped. Got a Jaeger speedometer. Nice clock over there. What a lovely thing. Very, very short gear lever, remote gear shift. So these were very much sporting cars of the 1930s. Like I say, this one is 1931, this Riley Gamecock. But very nice little car. Riley's very well supported as well, so if you ever need parts, advice, all that kind of thing, you shouldn't have to go too far to get it. Spare wheel hung on the back. Very distinctive exhaust tip there. Reminds me a bit of the old Brooklands Racers of the 1920s. Presumably that's the original registration number. Nice old cast number plate as well, with a little lamp as well. Yeah, very, very nice. What a great assortment of pre-war cars, and there are more to come. But for now, I think, which way should we go? Right, I think we're going to have a quick look at all the Land Rovers and Range Rovers just over the way there. Yeah, BRIGHTWELLS is very well known for its sales of Land Rovers, old and not so old. I don't profess to know a huge amount about Range Rovers and Land Rovers, but let's have a quick walk around and just give you a bit of an overview to what's here, and then you can always make your own inquiries if there's something that really catches your eye. Got a two-door Rangy over here, bit of a project, looks like it's been stored somewhere outside for a little while, but the popularity of Range Rovers means it's a viable project, I'm sure. This one has already been done though, this lovely Series 1 Land Rover. Of course, the Land Rover first introduced in 1948, based somewhat on the wartime military American Jeeps, the Willis and the Ford-built Jeeps. Rangy here on a B plate, so about 1984. In fact, quite the lineup of Range Rovers along there. Getting slightly newer as you go further down the line. The classic Range Rovers here. I imagine most of these have got the Rover 3.5 engine. Yeah, that's got the V8 badge just over there. So you've got the split tailgate, bit of a project this one, plenty to do, but yeah, like with all these sort of things, there's a huge following for old Range Rovers and Land Rovers, so I'm sure finding the bits won't be an issue. Got another one here. Like I say, there are some viewing days coming up, so get yourself over here. It's nice and easy to get to, just off the A49 on the outskirts of Leominster in Herefordshire, which is where I am today. Another Series 1. Now this one looks lovely. If that's a repaint, it's been a few years ago. It's mellowed in nicely, but it could actually be possibly the original paint. But either way, it's mellowed into what is now a very attractive look, I think. I do like Land Rovers to show a little bit of age. Of course, you're always looking at the bulkheads. This aluminium, all aluminium panel work, but the bulkhead and the chassis are steel, so those are the bits where you want to be having a very good look. Maybe bring a magnet, have a look, just see how they are holding up. But you can buy pretty much everything for these early Land Rovers, as far as I understand. That's a very bonny little one there. We've got another one. Now look how original does that one look. Wow, that is wonderful. FO, is that a Mid-Wales registration? Could be. Got a few badges on here. Is that the original supplying dealer? It could be, couldn't it? RP Ravenhill Limited, Hereford and Monmouth. Yeah. Power Farming Engineers, use Vigsol only. That's great. I love that. That's really nice. I've got a commercial AA badge, so that would have been on a lorry or commercial vehicle, which I guess this kind of is. And you've got a regular AA badge over there, but look at the wonderful, proper oily ragger. I do like that. Like I say, I don't profess to know a great deal about Land Rovers, but when I see these lovely original Series 1s, I do think, I could see myself with one of those one day. Right, let's have a quick look around here. So what's this? I've got a bit of information here. It must have been at a show at some point, the Series 1 Land Rover Rally in 2010. Yeah. Isn't that great? Later steering wheel, of course. I'm sure you'll find a proper steering wheel to go on it. I can't imagine that would be too difficult. And a lovely badge just in the middle of the dash there for the Rover Company of Solihull. Wow, there's the other one there. I say quite the array of so-called now classic Range Rovers. And we've got a P38 just up there. And we've got another one here, the P38 series. So these P38s were the replacement for what are now called the classic Range Rovers. It's on the 51 registration. That must be quite a late one, I would have thought. Like I said, I don't really know a great deal about these. I'll try and feature just a little bit of everything in this particular video, but the priority is always going to be the older cars. These have quite the following actually. These are the L322s. Good looking. I mean, I do like the look of these, I really do. Got a Freelander here as well. Let's just go along the line, see what other cars. As well as the vintage and the classic cars, we've also got quite a few sort of modern classics, retro cars entered as well. Got a Discovery 2, I think. Looks like it, from the mid-1990s. We used to have a facelifted Disco too, some years back. A long wheelbase example over there. Look at that, certainly is quite the assortment of Land Rovers, old ones, slightly later ones such as this Defender. And this one here, this one looks pretty original. And I was talking about bulkheads. I mean, I think you could, maybe you can even buy complete new bulkheads. But yeah, this one is going to need a bit of TLC in that department, but what a practical thing. Long wheelbase as well. And they're just like a giant Meccano set, everything on bolts, and you can get to the chassis. People often put new chassis on them as well. Galvanised chassis are available for lots of old Land Rovers. So there's not much you can't really do. Now, tucked away with all these Land Rovers and Range Rovers is this. This was BMC's rival, their answer to the Land Rover. They could see how popular the four-wheel drive Land Rover was, and they came up with this. At first glance it looks a bit like an early Landy, but this is the Austin Gypsy. There we go, the proud Austin badge there. And an interesting alternative, I'd say. I mean, there's sort of shades of Land Rover, and also it kind of reminds me a little bit of the early Toyota Land Cruisers, this sort of view here. But it's a pretty cool looking thing, I think. The downside with these was, in the day, they had quite a complicated suspension arrangement, if I remember right, on the early Gypsies. But the big problem was, they are all steel, whereas the Landy, it's just the chassis and the bulkhead, are steel. On these, the whole thing is steel, and as a result, they did rot away, especially as these were designed to be bouncing around fields and that kind of thing on farms, etc. They did tend to suffer the ravages of time quite considerably. But yeah, very interesting option if you fancy an off-roader, but maybe not a Land Rover. But if you do like Land Rovers, well, you've come to the right place. We've got a Series 3 there. What do we have here? Another one slightly later on an X registration. Another short wheelbase job here, another Series 3 from about 1971-ish, thereabouts. Look at this Series 1 here, wow. I say these first came out in 1948, the very early Series 1s. The headlights were a bit smaller and hidden behind the mesh grille. I don't know offhand the age of this one. I'm guessing this is about 50 or 1951, somewhere in that ballpark I would have thought. And then the headlights moved outside of the grille, as you can see there. So a bit of fettling to do. It looks like it's had a bit of work done to it. Some parts have been repainted, other parts not so much. But definitely an interesting project for someone there. And who doesn't love a good project? Beats watching the Traitors on TV, in my humble opinion. Right, let's plough on, see what other gems we've got in this particular corner of the building. A super clean example here. So what do we have over here? So this is the Series 2. Kind of first glance you think, oh, it's just another Series 1. But note how flat the doors are. There's no sort of sticky outy bits on these, it just goes straight down. Whereas on the Series 2s onwards, they're a bit curvier. They flare out a bit. And that tells you that you're looking at something post-Series 1. This is a Series 2, shortly to be replaced by the Series 2A. But the Series 2s have this flat slope here, whereas the 2As, it sort of curves a bit. That's the only real way that I can differentiate the 2 and the 2A. I don't think there's much in the way of differences. If you know what the differences are between the 2 and the 2A, please pop a note in the comments. Like I say, I'm not too well versed in the lore of the Land Rover. The four-wheel drive station wagon, in this case. It's got a galvanised chassis, so that's a very, very good thing, because the chassis can get pretty holy on old Land Rovers. So if you see one with a galvanised chassis, that is a big tick in the box, in my opinion. In fact, I don't think I'd buy one if it didn't have that. And look at this great little pickup. Ooh, I do like an old pickup truck. And this one is super tidy. Look at that. ESG 921. Again, this is a Series 2, if I'm reading my front panels correctly. So this would be, well, about 60-ish, 61, that kind of age. Similar to the example alongside, but yes, like I say, this is a pickup with a tonneau cover on the back. And I mean, how much fun does that look? And again, it's one of those sort of communities, the Land Rover world, where there'll be events on every weekend of the year, I would have thought. So you could have, buying something like this, you're buying your way into potentially a lot of fun. And if you decided to sell it after a few years, well, you might not make anything, but this kind of thing probably holds its value quite well, I would have thought. Love the original paint in the middle of the steering wheel over there. So slightly later, arguably a lot more comfier seats, but you could always reinstate the old style seating if you really, really wanted to. Like I say, it's all nuts and bolts with these things. Just a big Meccano set. That's very, very sharp looking little car. And yeah, what an amazing assortment of Land Rovers here in the upcoming auction here down at Brightwells. Like I say, the auction opens for registration and bidding this coming Saturday. It's an online auction which runs for several days. I think it runs till next Wednesday, so it gives you a chance to get down here and have a bid afterwards if you so wish. Another Series 2 there. And another one on the end here. Yeah, what an incredible assortment. Which one would I go for? Don't know. But if I was buying a Land Rover this weekend, which one would I go for? I do like this pickup, I have to say. But out of all of them, I'd be quite tempted with this one, just because I love the original paint and indeed this badge on the front. Apparently there's been a lot of interest in this Austin 7 Special. And yeah, in terms of pre-war cars, Austin 7s are one of the easiest cars to take on if that's the way you want to go. These and Model A's are really, really good choices if you want to get in on the pre-war car scene, because they're so well supported. As parts are easily available pretty much for most of the Austin 7s. This one looks like a special bodied car. I think these bits come with it. So we've got another lump of engine over there, wheel, gearboxes. Yeah, neat looking little car. The spare wheel hung off the tail. A sporty Brooklyn style exhaust pipe as well. So this is about 1930, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later, but not much. Quite cosy. It's got the remote gear shift, so you've got the sporty short throw gear lever here attaching to the gearbox itself all the way down there. Fair bit of legroom actually. Lots of instrumentation to keep you occupied, etc. Some old scrutineering stickers, so clearly, ooh, Lowton Park. So what's this? HD Haglian District something car club, I think that stands for. So maybe it's been used at the hill climb at Lowton. I've been there a few times. There are videos of Lowton Park hill climbs elsewhere on the channel. VK7167, presumably the original registration. A few upgrades going on at the front end here. We've got telescopic dampers. The mesh in front of the radiator to protect it from any flying stones. Hydraulic brakes. Very, very tidy little car. That looks like a bit of a giggle. But yeah, all sorts of things here. This Merc we'll have a look at in a moment. But let's work our way up this row, I think. And here we have a rally prepared Land Crab, a fantastic old 1800. Could be an Austin, could be a Morris. Not much difference between them really. Wow, it's got a plaque on the bonnet for the Pirelli Classic Marathon 1988. There was a great programme in the late 1980s following some of the cars taking part on the Pirelli Classic Marathon in the days before YouTube and all that kind of thing. It was quite unusual to see a programme about classic rally cars, but yeah, the Pirelli Classic is one that did feature on TV on mainstream TV in the late 1980s, possibly even the 1988 edition of the event. I can imagine it would be a bit of a hoot. Yes. Yeah, it looks like it's had a number of competitive outings, this particular car, in more recent times. Molesworth, I remember this in there years and years ago. Back in the 1990s, I used to volunteer at the Molesworth Motor Museum over near Delamere, just a few miles from Alton Park. And yeah, this was in there. Fancy seeing that again. Right, now, let's have a think. Like when I was talking about the little green Morris Minor over there, I mentioned the Morris 8, how it was the predecessor to the Morris 8 Series 1, and this is a Morris 8 Series 1. It's about 1935, I think, this particular car. This is a Morris 8 Series 1 4-seat tourer. So this has got the little 918cc side valve 4-cylinder engine under its bonnet. Very brawny little car indeed. So yeah, this was the replacement for the pre-war Morris Minor. Have a quick look round. Some of these were 2-seat tourers, others were 4-seaters. Little RAC badge on there. Hood looks to be in good nick. You've got this removable side screens as well, so that'll keep the worst of the weather out. Yeah, neat little car, not too big, fit in any garage that would. Parts are pretty much available for these. I know the Morris Register have a spares scheme which helps keep these cars on the road. In fact, I know the person that runs the Morris Club spares scheme, and yeah, I don't think there's much that you can't get in order to keep these on the road. And in fact, the engine for these went into the first of the post-war Morris Minors, the low-light Morris Minors and the MMs, until such time as the A series was introduced. So this engine certainly had quite a long life. Right, and next to it we've got the rival from Austin. This is from the late 1930s, about 1937 or 8, I think. This one I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I think it's a 38, and it looks to be in lovely condition. This is the Austin 10 Cambridge. We've got the Austin 10 Drivers Club badge. That's a club very much still in existence, and they cater for all the early Austins like this, not just Austin 10s. Looks like the original registration as well, so that's good to see. Don't like old numbers being taken off cars. Yeah, the Cambridge, so it's a 4-door saloon, 6-light saloon. As you can see there, 6-light because it's got 3 windows down either side of it. So this is just a little bit bigger physically and engine size compared to the contemporary sort of Austin 8, I suppose. And in fact, I think these are quite underrated cars. Everyone raves about Austin 7s, and rightly so, but I do like these slightly larger Austin 10s. You've just got more space inside, loads of legroom for a couple of people in the back. Let's have a quick peer inside, and look at that, the door just opens and closes just perfect. In fact, I might have to do that again. I mean, you could wallop it shut, but cars like this, really, you want to be doing that. Look at that. You couldn't ask for any better than that. Original trim as well. Yeah, you always have a good look at the door pillars, the hinge pillars, but there's no sign of drop on this one. But if the pillars get rotten and the doors start to drop, you're into a bit of welding. Not too bad, but ideally you'd buy a car like this that doesn't have any of those problems. Seats have been, I think they've been retrimmed at some point in time. All looks very neat, beautiful headlining in it as well, big opening sunroof as well, so that's nice, that's always good to see. Opening windscreen too, so for a bit of added air conditioning for your pre-war style motoring. But yeah, this one dates to 1938, so presumably it was only on the road for a year or so, and the outbreak of the Second World War, presumably this one would have been squirreled away in someone's garage, unless it was requisitioned perhaps, depending on where this car was first registered. Some of these cars were requisitioned for war use, air raid protection, that kind of thing. Or maybe it just got put up on blocks for the duration of the war. It'd be quite interesting to do a bit of research on the registration number and just find out where it was originally registered, find out who the original supplying dealer was, That's the kind of thing that I like doing, but it's not for everyone. But yeah, what a lovely, lovely car that is. A little 1938 Austin 10 Cambridge. So what's that going to sell for? 7-ish? 6, 7? In that kind of ballpark, I would have thought. So it's pre-war motoring, but things were changing really, really quickly. So, you know, we look at those 1920s cars over the back there. So they're only 10, 12 years older than this. But the driving experience and the style of the cars had come on leaps and bounds in the meantime. So to drive this would be very different to driving, say, even like the little Morris there, and indeed the cars over the back there. Right, anyway, let's carry on. Slightly later cars now. We've got a Jaguar Mark II. Well, I say a Mark II. This is actually one of the later cars. This is the Jaguar 340, as evidenced by the slimline bumpers, similar to those on the S-Type. So we've got a 3.4 in this particular case. These cars were like the run-out versions of the Mark II. They're sold as either the 240, the 2.4, or the 340 with a 3.4 litre engine. So a few detailed differences between these and the Mark IIs that came before. And this one is quite a late one on a G, bearing in mind that the XJ6 came out in 1968. So this is quite a late example of the 340. Some are manual, some are automatic. Let's have a quick look in here. Some manual floor change, later seats, but they kind of look in keeping, so probably won't bother changing those. Wood rim steering wheel, nice dark blue. It's got the cutaway Coombs style rear arches on it. The Mark II was an evolution of the so-called Mark I that came along in the 1950s, the 2.4 and the 3.4 saloons. Mark I's, well, at first glance looked very similar, but the Mark IIs had larger glazing, bigger windows, all that kind of thing, slightly different lights at the front as well. But yeah, this is quite a late example of the 3.4 saloon, very nice too. This, it looks a bit like an MGTF from a distance, but this is the Gentry. This is a kit car inspired by the MGTF of the 1950s. So probably quite a painless way. It probably wants a bit of fettling up, but it's probably quite a painless way of getting into a car with kind of oldie-worldy, pre-war-ish looks. Maybe slightly later running gear. The details will all be on the website, so check that out if you want to know what spec, what engine this particular car has. There were a couple of companies doing replicas, lookalikes of the MGTF, and Gentry was probably the best known of them. We've got another, what's this here? I'm not quite sure what we're looking at here, but it's inspired by the pre-war SS100, but later suspension on it. So yeah, I can't really tell you a great deal about that one, other than the fact paintwork looks very nice on it. Wood dash, Mark 1 to Mark 3 Triumph Spitfire rear lights. Right, let's carry on. Alongside it is a Morris Minor. This one, I think it's been re-engined. I think it's got a larger engine, possibly even a Fiat twin cam, but I'll have to check on that. That was a pretty common mod back in the 1980s when scrapyards were full of terminally rusty Fiats, but they still had good running gear in them. Quite a few people shoehorned the Fiat twin cam engine under the bonnet of a Morris Minor, and that made for quite an exciting car, I would imagine. And over here we have a Reliant Scimitar GTE. Right, so quick battery change later, and off we go again. So past the two-door Moggy. Quite a tidy looking little car actually. Unusual shade of green, it does suit it. Looks like the original reg and the original plates on it. It's got a tow bar too, so very practical. You can put your little Sprite Alpine caravan on the back. But where were we? Right. Scimitar. Now, normally these have the Ford V6 engine under that fiberglass bonnet, but this one appears to have had a few updates, if this V8 badge on the side is anything to go by. Let's have a look around here, see if there are any more clues. Yeah, just similar to GTE. So this is the SC6 series of GTEs, auto box. Slightly bigger than the previous SE5s and the SE5As. Built down at Tamworth in Staffordshire. Yeah. Looks very original, the paint. Presumably had a colour change at some point in time. Like I say, details will be on the website. Right, got a bay window VW camper here in a very vivid shade of purple. Lots of fun to be had with one of these, I would have thought. Perfect for staying over at a show at the weekend. So many shows that we get to in the evenings, like on a Saturday evening there's usually a bar open or a band or something. And if you've got an old camper van, it means you can stick around and then take advantage of those things. Yeah, right-hand drive, yeah, pretty cool. Right, what is this? A Toyota Land Cruiser, presumably. Yeah, it's quite a hefty thing, isn't it? Oh, heck. Looks a bit like a Chevy Blazer almost. It's that kind of era. Rightio, let's go and have a look along this back row. Next up we have this Elvis. This is a TC21/100 Grey Lady. This was the sporting version of the TC21 of the early 1950s. This one dates to 1954, this particular car. The racy scoops on the top of the bonnet, as well as the badge on the side, of course. That tells you that we're looking at a Grey Lady. Wire wheels were standard fitment on these cars as well. Real quality car. It's one of those sort of cars that it's kind of got its roots in the late pre-war era. Coach built, but produced following the Second World War. Like I say, this one is early 1950s, and yeah, that is one very, very handsome looking car, I think. That just looks like a real quality job. Like I say, 1954, the estimate on this is £10,000 to £15,000, and for that you would get a car in what appears to be lovely condition. The chrome, the famous enamel badge there, the triangle for Elvis. Let's have a quick peer along here. Big sliding steel sunroof. Spats over the rear wheels as well, giving it quite a sleek appearance, especially from the back. Again, lovely chrome. These are the sort of things you have to bear in mind, because to restore a poorly example of a car like this with lots of chrome would cost an arm and a leg. Chroming is a very, very expensive process. If you can find a car that the chrome's already been done, or it's in nice original condition, that is definitely a good thing. Very comfy in there, lovely leather seating, front and rear. Headlining looks very nice, the old West of England cloth headlining. Let's have a quick look in here. So we've got rear hinge doors. Look how easily, look at that. Somewhere to stub out your cigar. Wooden door cappings, leather trim, I think. So let's have a quick look in there. Very wireless. Is that his master's voice? Yeah, his master's voice wireless there. There's a bit of information, that's always good. It's nice to have a bit of info. Starting routine, yeah, Elvis TC21. Yeah, so a few tips on starting and how to open the sunroof, blah blah blah. Attaching the rear spats. Yeah, a few handy hints there. Yeah, what a beauty. Real quality job. I love these little air intakes on the top. Right, let's carry on. Rover P5B Coupe is next. This one on a K registration, so circa 1971, I would imagine. So it's blue with the white roof. Let's have a quick look around here. So this has got the 3.5 Rover engine in it. Coupe, because of the low roof line. Still a 4-door, just like the regular saloons. But this is the coupe, a much lower, curvier roofline. There we go, coupe. Handsome car. So originally these were the P5 3 litres with Rover's own engine in, and then to update them they shoehorned in the Buick designed engine, hence B for P5B. And lovely car, real quality job. I used to have a saloon one of these. Like big hefty doors, proper car. I think I'll just have to have a little sit in this one just to remind myself of what they're like. Super squidgy seats. Yeah, this all looks pretty familiar. Same main instrument binnacle as the P5B saloon. The coupe benefited from these extra gauges under the main instrument cluster, 2 on the left, 2 on the right over there. This is the pull-out tray, somewhere to put your flask and cup of tea, and it also doubles up as the toolkit in there. Got a Radiomobile radio as well. Was it a Motorola? Yeah, it is Radiomobile, yeah. My dad had one of those in his Volvo 144 when I was a little nipper. But I love the way the dash sort of wraps around. Lovely cars these are. Very popular with British Prime Ministers well into the 1980s. You'd see these parked outside number 10 Downing Street. And who can blame them? What a lovely thing. Very distinctive smell in P5, something to do with the leather, or the treatment of the leather. Proper clunk to the door. That's when you can tell you're looking at a good car. Nice heavy thunk to the door. Right, got a bit of info in the window, so let's have a look at that. It'd be rude not to. 1972, right, okay. Guernsey registration document, old MOT. Bit of DVLA correspondence. 12 to 15 is the estimate on this one. Yes. Great old things. Automatic box, they were all automatics. 1 or 2 have been converted to manuals, and a few years ago I was half tempted by a manual gearbox one of these. Maybe I should have jumped on it, who knows. But yeah, lovely car. Right, let's carry on. We've got an MGB Roadster. Wouldn't be a classic car auction without at least one MGB in it somewhere. A little gaggle of badges on the front as well. I particularly like this Motorsport Members badge. You don't see those around all that often now. The British Trial and Rally Drivers Association badge there. Not seen one of those before, I don't think. Got painted wires. Looks like a slightly older restoration perhaps. Still got the seams on the top here. That's always a good thing. You don't want the seams to be hidden, smothered under layers of filler. A few little cosmetic bits to do. Looks like a good user, that one. Now, next to that, we are back to classic Jaguars. And, as you probably have noticed by now, if you've been following the channel for a while, I do like old Jaguars. This is a 1964 Jaguar Mark II 3.4 litre. This particular car, so that's the mid-size engine version. And of course, they did the Daimler as well with a 2.5 V8. But this has got the 3.4 straight-six XK engine. Again, it's got the cutaway rear arches, just exposing the rear wheels a little bit more. These removable covers here were a lot deeper, probably came to about there, or something like that on the factory cars. But lots of them have been retrofitted with slightly more open spats. Yep, so B, that is 1964 Jaguar 3.4, lovely dark blue metallic. Nice sporting saloon of the early 1960s. I could be tempted with one of these one day. Great thing. Make a lovely sound as well. Especially the early gearboxes make a lovely whine to them as well. There you go. Overdrive, the all important manual overdrive option. Yeah. You've got a bit of timing gear just hung under the dash over there. Lovely job. Shuts nicely as well. Louvers in the bonnet as well, just to give it that extra sporting look. So yeah, lovely car, I do like that. And by complete contrast, now we've got one of these, a Volvo 66. So this was basically a DAF. Volvo took over DAF and put this into production. So it's very much a DAF car, but badged up and built under the Volvo era. What year is this? So it's on a P, so it's like mid-1970s at some point, isn't it? Pretty wild looking car, very, very distinctive. Presumably it's still got the CVT transmission that DAFs were so famous for. Nice to see the proper Volvo hubcaps. 66 GL. So it couldn't be more different to your regular Volvos. Of course, in the mid-1970s, Volvo was all about big, square, boxy 240s and 260 saloons in the States. Not so much this kind of thing. So this was a real departure. There we go, very Amatic. The CVT transmission. That's fitted to so many DAFs back in the day. That looks pretty neat. Nice paint on it as well, from what I can see here. Arches feel good. Have you ever owned one of these, or a classic DAF perhaps? Volvo there, so safety steering wheel as a reminder of Volvo's keen interest in car safety, which was really kicking in around this time. That shuts very nicely indeed, but yeah, what an interesting thing, a bit different, and the chances are you're not going to see another one of those at a car show. And again, by total contrast, next to it we've got a Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 2. So Shadow 2, slightly improved steering, handling, bigger bumpers with the rubber inserts, still with a 6 3/4 V8 engine under the long bonnet, proper wafter. Here we go, Silver Shadow 2, this one on an R plate. Handsome cars. I really like the look of these. There's one of these that's been under a sheet, under a cover, in a driveway just a few miles from us. It's been there years. I don't think I'd be brave enough to buy one that had been under a sheet for years, because it's one of those sort of cars you just want to buy a decent one, to be honest. You wouldn't want to buy a fixer-upper. It'd be interesting to know the backstory with this one, but what a lovely place to be. Very, very agreeable interior. I do like that. Right, a bit more Rolls-Royce, or in this case Bentley action over there, but we'll have a look over there afterwards, because I want to make sure we don't miss anything else. Here we've got a VW 1300, the Beetle, with the original supplying dealer sticker. I like that. Arthur Moore and Sons Limited of Great Whitley. VW, Saab. Excellent reminder there that Saab, very much an aircraft company. Looks to be like a really clean one. Looks to be very, very smart. Every now and again Mrs. OCC makes noises about the idea that having a Beetle would be quite a good idea. I know she's always liked Beetles. All looks pretty proper and correct in there. Yeah. Looks very nice. Of course, the old air-cooled engine in the tail of the car there. Right, and dwarfing it somewhat is this mighty Plymouth Fury Suburban alongside. Suburban was the big estate car. I think I did see this one here last month. What an incredible thing. Cool. You could live in the back of that quite easily. It's just huge in there. Fins, not too big the fins, but still pretty big. There's no missing this one in the car park. Lovely wraparound screens on the side here. That's a feature that did find its way onto several British estate cars of the day, thinking Humber Hawk and the Vauxhall Victor F-Type. None of those were anything like as big as this. Look at the very distinctive pull handles. That's quite cool. Look how thick the doors are. They never did anything by halves, the Americans. Wow. Plymouth. What a machine. Shuts well as well, like that. What a bonkers looking car that is. I love the twin peaks over the headlights on either side. And there's this sort of era. Every year pretty much American car makers would tweak, change, update, alter the appearance of their cars to keep them constantly refreshed. Whereas in this country cars would often sort of hardly change for year after year. I mean, if you think of like the MGB, apart from the change to rubber bumpers, there weren't many changes over its lengthy production period. That's that one shut. Yeah, huge wraparound screen. What a great thing. Now we are back to more familiar territory for these British eyes. A little Triumph Dolomite from, it's on a V-Reg, so what's that, about 79. It's probably quite a late example of the Triumph Dolomite. This one's got the Sprint alloy wheels, as so many of them do. Good user, I'm sure you could daily drive one of these quite happily. And this certainly looks lovely inside. Let's have a quick look. Very similar door handles to the MGB and other cars. Yeah, look at that. Even the interior light works. Wow. Yeah. Back in the day, this sort of interior trim wasn't the most hard wearing, it has to be said. This looks in really nice nick. I wonder if my hunch is that maybe these seats have been under seat covers, because to have so little sign of wear on the bolster here and here makes me think they've probably been covered up at some point. Got the original carpets too. Yep. A manual box, 4-speed manual, there we go. The old Astor CR74 in-car entertainment there. Well, these are really usable cars. I do like these actually. That shuts well. Yeah, you're always looking around the arches, that kind of thing, but nice and clean as well. You never want build-ups of mud under the arches because it just gets damp, stays damp and rots things out. Even on a modern car, you don't want mud building up. This is the 1300, so this is the little 1296cc engine that was fitted even in the Triumph Herald. So it's going to be very, very similar to the Herald engine. And of course, that can trace its roots back all the way to the Standard 8. So a little 4-cylinder 1300 engine in this. Nice, simple engine. Pretty reliable and pretty economical too, so that would actually make for a great regular user. And what a great 1970s colour as well. I like that. Right, now this is a car I did have a look at last time, and I was kind of half tempted by this. Before we bought the Herald, I was wondering about maybe getting something pre-war like this. This is a Devon registered standard Flying 10, so I think this is about 1937 TT. Is sort of Exmouth, Exeter area, that kind of thing. It may have had paint at some point in the past, but if it has, it was a very long time ago. It's all nicely mellowed now. The estimate on this, I think, is 2.5 to 3.5. I think it was a little bit more last time, but it's now been adjusted to 2.5-ish. It's got a little stripe down the side, worn through in places. So if that has been painted, I wonder if maybe the odd panel has been painted, but not all of it. So a quick look. But this is actually, yeah, it really does appeal to me, this actually, I have to say, because I want a bit of tidying up, obviously. Standards. It's even got the old supplying dealer transfer on the dash, that's nice. But yeah, it's obviously not been on the road for a while. But you could do something with that interior, tidy it up a little bit. attend to the seat. I'm sure you could do something with that. But that would have, if it comes for sort of 2.5-ish, something like that, bottom of the estimate, then I think that would make quite a nice car. Room for 4 people, bit different, and it's a pre-war car as well. So you can always tell the pre-war flying standards because they have these grills down the side of the bonnet. Some of the pre-war flying series of cars were reintroduced post-World War II, but they just had plain bonnet sides, they didn't have those slats in. Yeah, it's a 37, this one. There's just a sheet, it's just a bit of information on the back seat there, 1937, standard flying 10. Yep, so a bit of a project, a bit of a recommissioning job. So the opening roof looks pretty good round here. Spare wheel on the back. Proper nice cast plates as well. Yeah, that'd be a very bonny little project. I think if we hadn't bought the Herald, I'll be having a very close look at that. Right, let's carry on past lovely little standard. Got an XJS convertible, so it's one of the facelifted XJS convertibles from the mid to late 1990s, about 1996 I would guess at. Auto box, as so many of them were. Now, has this got the 6-cylinder or is it a V12? There is the question. If it's a V12 then it will definitely be auto. If it's a 6, it could be either. It hasn't got V12 on the front, so I'm going to go with 6-cylinder. On the earlier Jags you could look at the tacho and that would give you a bit of a clue. It's redlined at about 5.7, I'm not sure. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Quite a handsome looking car. Some small seats in the back as well, but you probably wouldn't want to go too far sat in the back of there. Yeah, XJS is interest in them, certainly seems to be on the rise. Of course, this year 50 years of the XJS since it was first introduced in 1975. There was a big gathering of these at the Bicester Scramble that we went to just a few weeks ago. If you haven't checked that video out, please have a look at that, but only when you're finished here, of course. This has got my youthful assistant's name written all over it. It's slightly sported up MGB, de-bumpered, MGB GT, mini lights. I wonder what's been going on with this one. It's got a rollover bar in it as well. Stripes over the top. So it looks like a bit of a giggle, I must admit. You can have a lot of fun with something like this. It won't be huge money. I'm not sure what the estimate is on this, but we're not talking vast amounts, I wouldn't have thought. So originally, being on an X, it would have been a rubber bumper car. It's been debumpered and the front just blended in just to hide where the bumper mountings would have been. It looks pretty clean looking car, actually. I think that could be a bit of a giggle. Right, let's carry on. Morgan here. Let's just have a look around that. So we've got a 2+2, the extra row of seats in the back, the little aero screens on the side here just to sort of prevent buffeting when you've got the side screens out. So made down in Malvern in Worcestershire. This one's on an M registration, so mid-1990s build, this one. Looks to be in nice nick. I like the colour. The colour really suits it, I think. And I've always said, small, low cars, from a safety point of view, I think they're always good to have them in a nice bright colour so that people can actually see you coming. I like the fact that the soft top is like a very nice dark green as opposed to black, so that just complements the body really, really nicely actually. That is a good looking thing. Right, now one of the older cars here today, and certainly one of the ones that really stood out to me when I was browsing the catalogue online yesterday, is this wonderful 1921 Wolseley 10. Now this model, I think they were introduced in about 1919 and produced for about 6 years until about 25, something like that. This one looks super duper original. I really like that. The estimate on this is about 7 to 10, somewhere like that. But what a wonderful little car. If I had the space and the necessary hidden down the back of the sofa, I would I would probably have a go at this. Got the original registration number, the original plates as well. Beautiful patina on them, no front brakes. Don't need anything like that. Starter handle. Just wonderful little car. Just beautiful CAV lamps again. It's probably had paint at some point in its life, but I bet not in the last 50 years. Let's just stand back and just look at the shape. I mean, what a beautiful little thing. Proper sort of Toad Hall type car. Great. Love the curve to the bonnet and how that sort of echoed in the scuttle here. And then you can see the bottom curve of the screen as well follows the shape of the bulkhead. So I think that is a super lovely car, isn't it? Yeah. So it's a two-seater, pretty hefty quarter elliptic springs on the back, brakes on the back. Just look at this lovely interior trim. Thankfully no one's reupholstered it, because why would you? That's what some people would, but just wants to keep on top of it with a bit of leather food, and that'll last for many, many more years to come. But yeah. And there's the original builder's plate there. Wolseley Motors Limited. Originally it was the Wolseley Sheep Shearing Company. They used to make sheep shearing equipment before they got into motor cars. Lovely simple car. So the 10 is the 10 horsepower rating, which was a formula devised by the RAC and used for road tax purposes. It was a formula based on the diameter of the engine cylinder. And that. If I had bottomless pit of money, I'd set up my own museum and I'd be filling it full of cars like this. And indeed, several of those early cars just over the way. What a little sweetheart that is, isn't that? Just lovely. Just imagine pottering down the lanes to a local watering hole. Something's being run up just over the back there. Yeah, look at that little hooter there, pop. CAV lamp there as well. Spare wheel on the driver's running board. Super simple car. Real quality little car. These were sort of quite a step up compared to your Austins and your Morrises, that kind of thing. And I'm guessing by the fact that there's a little step here, there must be a seat hidden away. Well, there we go. Let's have a look. Oh, look at that. Wow. Look at that. Lovely little seat in the back. Of course, you'd only deposit someone in there on a sunny day, because the people in the front, well, they've got a folding roof to hide them. You can cower under there when it starts raining. But not so much for the people in the back. But this was like an occasional use only, really. The rear dicky seat, or rumble seat as they were called in America. But isn't that lovely? Again, proper original upholstery. That could be dangerous if I had very deep pockets. Let's have a look. We'll just have to knock the little thing in. So we'll do that. There we go. And this one as well. There we go, and that just closes down. Perfect. What a lovely little car. Yeah. I'd very much like to take that one home with me. Right, we've got a Morris van here, a minor base van, 1964, this particular car. That'll be familiar to anyone brought up on Morris Minors. Morris Minor 1000. Of course, these weren't actually sold as Morris Minors, they were just Morris. Was it 600 or 700 weight, 800 weight van, that kind of thing. Separate chassis on these, unlike the cars. The cars were monocoque. Same for the Traveller Estates and the convertibles, but the pickups and the vans, they have a separate box chassis. You always want to have a good poke around those just to make sure they're in good nick. There's the familiar A-Series engine, the inline 4-cylinder A-Series. Pretty much as per any Morris Minor under here. I always want to have a good look around there. It's had a little repair at some point in the past, but they all have by now, I think. Alternator fitted to this one. Very bonny little thing. Got great sign written. Maybe I should get one of those and sign right it with OCC down the side, who knows. Right, okay, next to it we've got a fin-tail Merc. And before we bought the V8 Pilot, I was also looking at cars of this era, and fin-tails were kind of on my radar at the time. This one's a 65, the so-called fin-tail because it's got the pointy fins on the back, or the Heck Flosser as it was known in Germany. You know, the little fins. It's the sort of thing the bad guys in the early James Bond films would have been driving around in. The 220S. So this will be on a carburettor. Some nice design detailing, all this chrome. Real lashings of chrome. I like the fact that it sort of continues up here, all the way along here, and then just tails off part way along the rear door. Real quality job these are, beautifully made. I'm sure this door opens and closes really well. Big hefty door, just like on that Rover P5B. Pretty wacky looking instrument cluster as well. Motorola radio. There we go. Some of these are petrol. I think this is a petrol car. Some were diesel. These replaced the Ponton era of Mercedes, much curvier, the earlier Ponton cars. But these were very much designed with the 1960s in mind, hence the restrained fins on the back. Pretty cool looking thing. Something else being fired up. I think someone's tinkering with the Riley Gamecock just over the back there. But for now, let's have a look at this. This is a Riley RM series. I think this is an RME from about 1954. It's had paint at some point in time. Would you redo it? Would you keep it as it is? I don't know, to be honest. It'd be a big job to repaint, so I'll probably just leave it as it is. Dad's a big fan of these. He used to have a couple of Riley RMs back in the 1960s. He had a 1.5 litre saloon, which is what this is, hence the dark blue background to the Riley badge. The 2.5 litre cars had a pale blue background, but this is an RME. Just go around this side here. Apparently this one's got a rebuilt engine in it, and the estimate on this is about 5 to 6, that sort of ballpark. It's one of those sort of post-war cars, but they're still lovely inside, just like pre-war cars. That one opens nicely. There you go. Like I say, this is really just a... Shuts very nicely too. And the thing you want to check on these is the condition of the roof. Because a bit like, I was looking at an Allard the other day, and the roof on that had been partially removed, and like this, it's got like a wire mesh that forms the curve. This isn't a solid steel roof, even though at first glance you think, oh, that's a folding soft top, but it isn't. This is a fixed roof. It's a saloon, this car, but this comprises like a wire mesh, and then padding, and then this Rexine on the top. And this one looks to be good, but sometimes you see these cars and they're bubbling up beneath the Rexine, so you always want to have a good look around the roof just to make sure that things are proper under the skin. Yeah, nice Riley RME. Now this is an interesting one here, this Merc, this SL. So this is one of the R107 series Mercedes, but I think this is an imported car because it's a left hooker and it's got the American spec bumpers front and rear. But what makes this really unusual is this is a 560 SL, a 5.6 V8. Again, you've got the heftier bumpers, which were standard fit in America, and the high level brake lights, which we didn't get in this country either. But yeah, 560 SL. I think I'm right in saying the biggest engine we got was the 5 litre V8, but this has got the 5.6. So how this ended up in this country, who brought it over, I don't quite know, but I guess probably the history of this one will be on the Brightwells website, or you can just give them a tinkle in the office and they'll give you the full lowdown on how this car ended up to be in this country. I just love looking at old Mercs and the detailing, the quality of the fittings and everything. It's one of those rare cars from the 1970s, 1980s that were really built to a quality and not just to a price. Would you keep the federal spec bumpers on, or would you change them for a more European look? I'm not sure. I guess it is original like this, so I guess it would make sense to leave it as it is. But with a 5.6, that's a pretty special car. But at first glance, you'd think it's just a regular SL. Behind that, we've got another German classic, this about 1972 or 73, BMW 2002 Saloon. This one on later alley wheels, probably from the 1980s, 3 Series, something like that. Nice, with the earlier style front end on it. The bonnet appears to be up or open. Can we open that? No, I won't try that. But nice looking car, good looking car, big glass house, very nice and easy to see out of. Quite a sporting car. Later cars had the sort of more horizontal rear lights, but these with the circular lights do look pretty cool, I think. Yeah. Bit of fettling going on with the Riley Gamecock over the way. And right, let's carry on to the next row, just over the way here. While we're on the subject of German cars, we've got another SL here. This what appears to be a UK market 350 SL version of the R107 SL Merc. This has got the factory hardtop on it, beautifully made hardtops, all glass windows, none of your plastic screens or fiberglass hardtop here. Lovely, just great cars. Both Mrs. OCC and the youthful assistant are big fans of this era of SL Merc, and I can quite well see why. And I like the fact this one's got the old steel wheels with the Merc wheel trims on it. They really look the part, colour coded to match the rest of the car as well, as you can see there. Very nice. You always want to check the arches on these. I'm always suspicious if I see old Mercs with those sort of shiny wheel arch trim things nailed on. That always raises a few alarm bells, but no sign of those with this one. Right, we'll carry on up here. This is a TR7 drop head with the Rover V8 engine, quite a popular conversion, aping the few factory TR8s that were produced back in the olden days. Now we've seen Jaguar 340, we've seen the Mark II 3.4. This is the Daimler, the 2.5 litre Daimler. So this has got the Edward Turner design 2.5 engine in it. And by all accounts, these are a very good steer indeed. Nice light engine. Some of these are manual, about 400 or so were manual, the rest were autos. This is a manual gearbox car. So that marks it out as a bit of a rarity. And the manual transmission and the 2.5 V8, that would be a lovely car actually to drive. So yeah, V8 250. Sometimes they were called, at some point in time they were called the 2.5 litre. Other times the V8 250, depending on the build date. Again, looks very, very similar to the Mark II, of course. By this point in time, Jaguar had bought out the Daimler company. And to keep Daimler people happy, they applied the Daimler grille to the Mark II. Right, let's carry on up here. We've got a mid-1950s Rover 90, the P4 series here. So this is the one just after the Cyclops that had the extra lamp in the middle of the radiator there. A lot of the paint looks original. It's had a few bits blown in here and there. So you probably want to attend to those just to tie it all together. Suicide doors, rear hinge back doors, as all the P4s had. I quite like these early ones with the curvier, sort of the wings drop down more on these earlier P4s compared to the later cars, and same at the front. They're much squarer. The wings on the later P4s sort of come along here and then drop down, but these wrap around much nicer shape, I think. in my humble opinion, but you know, that's only me. Right, let's have a quick look in here. Look at that lovely interior light there, just illuminating the dash. Got a bit of extra leather just attached to the top of the seat, but yeah, it looks pretty original in here. Oof, that's very nice. Original headlining too, survived nicely. Yeah. Could definitely daily one of these. Next to that, we've got MGTD. There we go, so early 1950s, 52, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit later, but not by much. Steel wheels, of course that was standard fitment on these. Wire wheels, people have fitted wire wheels to them, but they came as standard with the tin wheels that you see there. This one's got a luggage rack and a crate on the back. Ooh, look at that, goodies. We like goodies. Nice old case. MG everywhere you look, and the grab handle there for the passenger. Earlier cars, even the instruments were octagonal shaped, not so on this. Yeah, it's a tired user by the look of it. The sort of thing you could probably run, use, improve, just tidy up a little bit in your own time, but you could probably use it pretty much straight away. I would have thought maybe a little bit of recommissioning, but yeah, nice one. Staying with MG, got a chrome bumper GT here with the full length Webasto roof. Pretty sharp looking car on those wheels, nice colour, I like the colour. Pretty beefy looking exhaust pipes sticking out of the back as well. So which grille have we got on this one? So this has got the cross hatch grille. So this was between the chrome slatted grille and the recessed grille as fitted to Dad's GT. Got an Austin Healey 104 here from the early 1950s. Beautiful looking car, very similar style to the early Austin Healey 3000s. No wind-up windows, just the clip-in side screens, and as I've said many times before, I love how all this curves in together. The later cars with the wind-up windows, the big 3000s, they didn't have that. They're much straighter, but I do love the look of these earlier cars. Super sleek, beautiful shape. Collaboration between the Austin Motor Company and Donald Healey. Yeah, it's a beautiful looking car. Must not look at this anymore. It's even got quarter elliptic springs on the front as well. Yeah, what a beauty. Right, must not get distracted. Right, early 1950s, Triumph Renown, MRU 765. So again, it's one of those sort of coach-built post-war cars like the Elvis TC21 we were looking at before. Still built with the sort of the pre-war construction methods in evidence, but built after the Second World War. So this is the Renown razor edge styling, so-called razor edge styling, quite square cut lines, which was quite unusual for the time, given that most car companies were producing very curvy looking cars. Triumph went their own way with the Renowns, and indeed the smaller Mayflower. Quite a handsome looking car, I think. I was never entirely sure about the shape of the Mayflower, but the Renowns, maybe it's just because they're a little bit bigger. I do like them. I do quite like these. There are various different versions of these offered, but Renown is the sort of the generic term that just applies to all of them. Some were called the Town and Country, others were simply sold as the Triumph 2000 Saloon. There's the Triumph badge there. Of course, just a few years later, the Standard Car Company bought out Triumph, thus creating Standard Triumph. This intriguing Citroën Traction Evolve drop-head coupe is a car we have seen before. It's a right-hand drive car, and with the chevrons behind the grille, that tells us we're looking at a Slough-built car. I've got a feeling this one started out as a saloon and was converted at some point later in time into the car, the open-top car that you can see here. I think it's aping a car that was offered back in period, but I've got a feeling, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is a slightly later build. It's a Light 15 Roadster, 1953. Unique, great history, handful in existence. Again, it's got the dicky seat in the back, hence the step on the rear wing there, and down there. Lovely trim inside as well. What a special place that will be to sit in. And that strange object there is the gear lever. There you go. Very swish indeed. Right. Wow, look at this. This mighty machine is a 1952 Allard P1. Allard company set up by Sidney Allard, who back in the day was quite the amateur racing driver, and he also got involved in drag racing in later years. He was a keen fan on the old flathead Fords, the V8 engines. That's probably what's in this one, I would have thought. Rear hinge doors, coach built bodywork ash framing. Really distinctive, incredible looking car, really. Looks like nothing else on the road. I love how all the body joints are leaded in, because the roof would have been separate there. It's all been leaded over. So no ugly seams, beautifully restored actually. It's got real presence. Just look at the shape down the side of that. There we go. Built in London, February 1952. There's one of the cars. Don't think it's this one, but there's one of the cars competing on the 52 Monte Carlo. Yeah, this car is virtually identical to the car driven to first place in the 1952 Monte Carlo Rally by Sidney Allard. Fitted with a 3.9 litre V8 Mercury side valve engine, so Ford. 559 of these were built. Wow. Amazing shape, incredible presence on the road. That really is pretty wild looking car. And then we're back to the Plymouth here, so I think now is the time to head over and just have a quick scoot around some of the later modern classics that are also entered into this BRIGHTWELLS auction. I won't spend too long in here, but I just want to have a quick look just to feature a little bit of everything in this video. Heading up this row is a Bentley Mulsanne S. So this was a contemporary of the Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit, which came along after the Shadow 2 that you can see over there next to the DAF. So a bit boxier these were. This was Rolls-Royce and Bentley's car for the 1980s onwards. This is the Mulsanne S. Got another Mercedes-Benz SL here, this in our 129 era of cars. Very sleek looking, good buys these are. They don't tend to go for huge amounts of money, but they are still really nicely put together. Yeah. Got hardtop on this one as well. Right, let's carry on. Ooh, we have Jaguar XJ8. Familiar territory here. I came down here today in mine. This is on a W registration, so a couple of years earlier than ours, but pretty much the same. So this will either be the 3.2 or the 4 litre V8. I think this is a 3.2. Yeah. These are just wonderful things to drive around in. So comfy and cosseting. The seats are just super comfy, and actually the bolsters are in good condition on this. They're nearly always gone on here. Mine are a bit worn there, but this one looks to be actually really good. Slightly lighter colour wood in this one compared to mine. Mine's the XJ8 Sport, so I think that's probably why it's got the darker wood. This has got your more traditional shade of walnut veneer in it, allied to tan leather interior. Yeah, very nice too. Yep, XJ8, there we go. As supplied originally by Jaguar dealer Guy Salmon. That's a good old thing that is. I do like those. 760 Volvo Estate. This has got the V6 in it. So when we moved house to where we are now 20 odd years ago, I actually bought a 760 Estate very similar to this. It's one of the flat fronted 760 GLEs. Paid £125 for it because the gearbox wasn't working properly. Auto box. But all it needed was a bit of a top up of fluid, and then it worked fine after that. And then ran it for a few months, shifted all sorts of stuff in the back of it during the house move. Then we sold it on for about 100 quid, I think. So that was a really good thing. Real tough old girl these are. We're back to Jaguars now. This is an XJ40 Jaguar. So we've just been looking at the X308, the V8 over there next to the Volvo. So you've got the V8, the X308, and there was the X300 before that, which was that shape but with a 6-cylinder engine. Before that it was this, the XJ40. This is a fairly late example of the breed. Handsome looking car, I think. They're really sort of, they're just, I think, coming into their own just because they're so different to anything being made now. And of course the future of Jaguar is certainly less than clear right at this moment in time. JDC sticker there. Yeah, beautiful paint finish on this one. It really is a nice looking example. Because as with any Jaguar, you're always looking around the wheel arches, the sills down here. Quite prone to going here, but all the proper metal edges, no build-up of mud. That's the important thing, because they just start rotting away behind the mud flaps and along here. But this appears to be very, very good. The built-in car phone there. the famous J gate, the automatic gearbox gate there, in the shape of a J. Sounds like the little Riley's running over the way, the Riley Gamecock. So this is the Sovereign, so this is a slightly higher spec car, I think, compared to your regular XJ6. Yeah, great, very sharp looking car, I think. Really tasty and a lovely colour as well. Right, Alpha Spider, one of the very late traditional era Alpha Spiders. This on an F plate, so about 1988-ish. So slightly different front end on these. The squared off tail with the big black spoiler on it as well. Alfa Romeo Spider. But still echoes of the original boat tail Alfa Romeo in the design of these cars. Later interior, of course, for the 1980s. Very, very curved doors and wings, really do balloon out, giving it very nice lines actually. And as with the earlier Alphas, the gear lever poking through, almost horizontal. Yeah, very tidy indeed. Just scoot down here. So what's this, the Lexus? Is this the SC430, I think? Just have a quick look around here. Lexus, of course, the posh armour Toyota, yeah, the SC430. So I imagine very well put together. Yeah. Very tidy. Got a Porsche Carrera, open top, Porsche there. Very smart. More Porsche action here, including this white V8 engined Porsche 928. Pretty cool GT car, introduced in the late 1970s. Now this is interesting, this isn't any old smart car, because I'm told this is Sterling Moss's old smart. Because he lived in the middle of London. Sadly he's no longer with us, but he lived right in the middle of London, and he was a big fan of bombing around in tiny little city cars like this. And of course he had a bit of history with Mercedes, going way back to the 1950s. Yes, apparently this was the great man's own little smart. Yeah, so he's driven this one. Apparently he was responsible for putting the 6.3 badge on the tailgate. Interesting car. I'm assuming there must be a bit of paperwork to show Sterling Crawford Moss's name on the logbook somewhere, or maybe on the old purchase receipts, but yeah, interesting car. If I had that, I'd put number 7 on the front, which was his favourite number for race cars. Right, got a Maserati here, open topped. Yeah, 2+2. I love how the trident is embossed into the leather headrests. And the famous clock in the centre of the dash, which was a Maserati thing for many, many years. A beautiful car. Right, let's keep going up here. Dodge Challenger SRT, a vivid shade of orange. Another R129 Merc, and a somewhat later car there. Another R129, popular here today. Quite the gaggle of Mercedes over here. This is familiar territory. Dad used to have a 500 SEL, one of these W126 cars, way back in time. In between his Series 3 XJ12, and later he had 7 Series BMWs, the E38s, but for quite a few years he ran a 500 SEL, pretty much identical looking to this really. I'm not sure if this is the long wheelbase or not. Various different engines were offered. Are there any clues? Alright, 420 SEL, so long wheelbase, hence the L. This has got the 4.2 V8, so a slightly smaller version, but to be honest you'd probably struggle to notice much difference between the 4.2 and the 5 litre. This one in beautiful condition, one of the last of the really well screwed together Mercs. The Beamer, the 7 Series Beamers were a lot sportier, a lot more modern in many respects, but there wasn't much to beat the quality, the build quality of these cars. Huge, heavy doors. So that's your handbrake, so you pull it on with that, and then I think, if I remember right, there's another pedal for kicking the brake off, the parking brake off. Yeah. Magnificent things. Right, so got an open top Merc here. Like I say, you don't really know much about these, so AMG Alpha Spider project over here. So yeah, if you're wondering what to do with yourself over the long dark evenings coming up in the winter, maybe this interesting assortment of parts would be for you. A little Suzuki Cappuccino here, not quite sure what the story is with this one. There's a few bits behind it, so maybe it's a stalled restoration, that would be my guess. Talking of cars that probably need a little bit of restoration, we've got this Lancia Fulvia, so the front wheel drive V4 powered Fulvia. Yeah, so it's a right-hand drive car, but with the non-UK market headlight position, because as I've said in previous videos, the UK market cars, the headlight had to be moved up a bit, and there you got like a bit of a hump in the top of the front wing. So this, even though it's a right-hand drive car, it's got overseas spec headlamp positions. So where's this come from? Maybe it's coming from South Africa or somewhere like that. A lot of right-hand drive cars are coming over from that neck of the woods, but again, I don't know for sure. Got a CL63 Black Series. I'm sure that's a bit of a giggle. Subaru Mondeo. Wow, that's a jolly colour. Renault Megane. Right, let's keep going down here. Little Opel. Right, so we had the Vauxhall Astra GTE. This is the Opel Kadett GSI. It's left-hand drive. Bit of a rarity over in this country, so where's this one been, I wonder? I'm sure this one's got a tale to tell. I think this van here has got like 400 or 500 brake horsepower, something like that, so many modifications. I'm sure there's a lot going on there, but on slightly more familiar territory. We've got a Mark 1 Mini, a Morris Mini, over the way here. Nice faded blue paintwork with the white roof. Like I say, all the specific details in terms of paperwork, history, etc. you will find on the Brightwells website. This has got the reverse rim Cooper S type wheels, slidey door windows. Badges off the back. Neat little Mark 1 Morris Mini. And we've got an Austin Cooper S alongside a rally car. Wow, that looks pretty purposeful. Great set of 4 lamps across the front. Austin Cooper S. It's a 65 registration date. Pirelli Classic Marathon. All the bells and whistles inside. Is it open? Yeah, it is open. There we go. Wow, look at that. How much fun does this look? All the timing gear over that side, bucket seats. Fantastic. You can definitely see the appeal in something like that. Even the interior smells just like the old Mark 1 bright red Mark 1 Mini Estate that Mum used to have, and I learnt to drive in before I switched to the A40 in the late 1980s. Yeah. Very bonny little car, and a somewhat later Mini Cooper alongside. Now there are cars outside as well, but it is raining this morning. It's a bit brighter that way, so I think I'll just hang fire and see if the rain blows over before I venture out there. Look at that Bedford Green Goddess. But in the meantime, we'll have a quick wander around the rest of the stuff inside. Got a Velocette LE. So these were shaft drive, water-cooled Velocette, produced in quite large numbers actually. The various police forces were big fans of these. Very quiet by all accounts. Very distinctive. I'm not sure you'd call it graceful or particularly good looking, but it's certainly distinctive. The police spec ones used to have phones on them and all this sort of stuff. Certainly quite an interesting thing to own now. We've got a matchless alongside. Nice. I do like an old British bike, I have to say. And the Sunbeam, I'm guessing this is probably the Sunbeam S8. I don't know a great deal about motorcycles, so please forgive me for any errors, because as always with all these walkarounds I'm just making it up as I go along. EEF 247. Now, is this about 1957? The reason I'm going to guess at 1957 is because one of my old standard 10s was EEF 439, and that was a 1957 car. So registered just a few days probably after this bike in the same registration office wherever EF is, or was. Super bike, really chunky looking old girl, and looks to be in very nice condition as well. Wonder what that'll go for. I would hesitate to try and guess at what something like this would go for, but probably not a huge amount. Right, we've got some classic Japanese bike action over here. Honda's various, quite a few actually. So what's this, a CX650E water cooled. Big radiator on the front there. What is this one? Pretty similar. This is a CX 500 Sport again, with a hefty rad on the front. Bit of Triumph action from the late 1960s alongside it. There's a fairing here. Handy to avoid the queues on the morning commute, perhaps. This is what's this? Parajet and Dudek wing. Estimate 4 to 6. Only 10 hours use. I wonder why. There you go. Avoid those lengthy traffic delays and fly to your destination. I wonder if that comes with any Brave pills. It looks like a bit of a giggle. What's this here? We've got a Yamaha. Another Triumph here. They say Bonnie from 1970. Good year that was. Yep, very nice too. Bit of history. V5C and a few old MOTs with that one. The Honda Super Sport 404. 4-cylinder motorcycle. Hondas really did turn out some really well engineered and interesting bikes in those days. Another one alongside Honda Super Sport. There's the supplying dealer for the Sunbeam. What a beauty. Riley is just being fettled over the way, so I'll keep out of the way. Yeah, quite an interesting little assortment of bicycles, motor bicycles, entered into the next auction. Now, I think that's probably it for the cars inside. Just got to decide whether I go outside and risk the rain, or will it blow through? Who knows? Okay, well, I've ventured outside now. The rain has eased a bit, so we can have a quick look around at what's out here. Incredible. These were unofficially the Bedford Green Goddess fire appliances as used by the army throughout the 60s, 1970s, probably into the beginning of the 1980s. This one, there you go. And this vehicle is, or was, the property of the Home Office. Probably tiny mileage. Most of these have tiny mileages on because they spent most of the time in reserves in store, just in case they were ever needed. You've got all the fire pumping gear on the back as well. Oh, that's pretty neat. Remains of the old label there for the AFS, the Auxiliary Fire Service. Wow, what a thing. Wonder what the reserve is on that. Can't imagine the estimate is too high. Pretty neat. And I've got several later cars over there. We'll just have a quick look round. There are one or two that are relevant to the channel. This is an X350 Jag, the aluminium bodied XJ. We've got an S-Type here. Mercs Various, SLK, 124 Cabriolet. Quite a handsome son of a gun. This is one of the facelifted cars with a slightly shallower radiator grills. E-Class. A little Escort Estate, a two-door estate based on the Mark IV Ford Escort. This has got the XR3 telephone dial alloy wheels on it. Ford Cougar. Not every day you see one of those, nor indeed one of these Mark IV Escorts here. Cabriolet, got the Ford Puma. Very neat little cars, I think they are. Alfa Romeo Spider, just tucked away in the corner here. Like I say, these are within the modern classics element of the upcoming auction. Like I say, the auction actually runs for several days. A little Rover Metro there. Bit of Porsche project action here. We've got a pair of Porsche 944s. I think these have been sold together as a job lot. So maybe if you want to build yourself a racing car based upon a Porsche 944, or maybe you race a 944 and you just want a couple of donor cars to hand in case you modify perhaps a front wing or something, then maybe these would be of use, who knows. Right, let's carry on down here. We've got an Audi, a W12 Audi, so the engine in that is based on that of the Bentley Continental GT. Audi S6 wagon, the estate car there, bit of a sleeper, bit of a Q car. Audi TT Coupe, it's still raining a little bit. A3 or something there. An E46 BMW 3 Series with AC Schnitzer logos on it. Right, so we got a Corrado, quite a chunky, good-looking cars. Those, I think. That one's a VR6. So I'm sure someone will take that on. Mazda MX-5 Mark III, Toyota Celica, another 3 Series E46, this time a 3-door coupe, and we've got a 1 Series Cabriolet on the end here. What have we got down here? A couple of trailers, always handy to have a trailer around. Got a V12 powered 5.3 litre Jaguar XJS with the Federal Spec circular headlamps, as opposed to the single lozenge shaped lamp per side of the UK market cars. This has got the Federal Spec lamps, which I do think suit it. I like that. So this is the full cabriolet version. Quite a fetching shade of metallic green. It's a colour you tend to see Aston Martins in, actually, that light metallic colour. So it's a pre-facelift car, V12. Yep. Good looking car, I think. You've got your Borg Warner auto box in it. Mini. And if you fancy a bit of a fixer-upper camper, maybe this Bedford, is it CF or a CF2? Maybe this old Bedford will be up your street. I wonder what that'll go for. Certainly needs a bit of tickling up, but I'm sure it's got a few stories to tell. I think its glamour days are probably behind it, at least for the moment, unless of course someone takes it on as a bit of a project. Oh, certainly nice and airy, the interior. Ooh, look at that Hercules bike, the folding, I hope you can see that, the folding Hercules bicycle of the 1970s. That's actually really neat. I know it's a lady's bike, I think, judging by the lack of what do you call it, the crossbar. That's it. And you can see the little handle just about there. So you release that and then it folds into two for compact carrying. But yeah, that's actually a really original little bike. I assume that comes with it. So that's a bit of a Brucey bonus if you decide to bid for this Bedford CF. Yeah, certainly needs a fair bit doing to it, but I'm sure it will be priced accordingly. Right, I'm going to head back inside the main building and just see if there's anything I've missed. There's some pretty moody looking clouds ploughing their way over Herefordshire, northern Herefordshire today, so I'll do my best to dodge the showers. Right, yeah, these S-Types, interesting looking, nice looking cars. This is a facelifted car and it's very nice. Yeah, so it's a facelift, slightly different back end, different backlights compared to the previous S-Types, and this XJ6 with the turbo diesel engine in it. Right, let's get back inside before those clouds do their thing. So there we go, folks. That is my look around preview of the next Brightwell's vintage and classic car, including modern classics auction. What particular car or cars really appeal to you? What do you think you would have a bid on, given available funding? Would it be one of the pre-war gems along here? Maybe this 1933 Morris Minor, or the mid-1920s Donnet Zedel, this lovely Alvis 1240. That would definitely be on my shortlist. Would I go for this, or would I go for that little Wolseley 10? I really don't know. I think they are both wonderful. This Vauxhall has a lot going for it, and this mid-1920s Sunbeam would be perfect because we could all fit in this, being 4/5-seater, plenty of room for the Jones clan in that one, so that would be an excellent choice too. What would I go for? I really do not know. I love the rarity and unusualness, if that's a word, of this Sidea Jouffre. Just an incredibly rare car. Real oddball, beautiful looking car. Maybe there's a little Riley Gamecock, very bonny little car. Heard this one running just a moment ago. Or the 1915 Grant parked over on the end here. But one thing's for sure, there's a fine array of pre and post-war cars available. Maybe you'd like something a little bit later, perhaps this Riley RME or the BMW O2, the little Land Crab over there, the Rally Spec Land Crab, the Austin 10 Cambridge, that's a little belter as well. Fintail Merc, I like that too. Sometimes it'd be a lot easier if I just liked one particular type of car. Got the little Morris Minor here. MGB, I know Harley would be very keen on that one, I am sure. XJS for a bit of wafting, VW for a bit of camping. Lovely little pre-war recommissioning project there, the Flying 10. Dolly, that'll make a great daily user. What else have we got? Pretty bonkers looking Allard P1. I still can't make my mind up between that Elvis 1240 or this glorious 1921 Wolseley 10. This or the Elvis? Well, I think the only correct answer is to have both. So I'm going to hedge my bets and say that this and the Elvis 1240 are my picks of this particular auction. Of course, let me know in the comments your thoughts, your feelings on the cars featured here, and what indeed would be your favourite choice or choices. So thank you so much for watching this particular video. I'm sure it's turned out to be another fairly longish one here at Brightwells, but there's so much to look at that I didn't want to miss anything else. So thanks, big thanks for watching this. Please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't done yet, because that really helps the channel continue and helps me continue to make these videos, which I would like to do for the foreseeable future. Yeah, anyway, I think that'll do. So time to go home, get this edited up and get it onto the channel. So bye for now.